Welcome into another edition of This Week in UNC Baseball with head coach Scott Forbes. I'm Tommy Ashley. That's Matt Clements. The man in the middle is head coach Scott Forbes. A little bit better mood around the program, Scott. I want to start this with a quote from April 23rd. I asked one of your players about the Boston College sweep, and he said, quote, "We're fixing to go on a run. I could feel it." Tomas Frick. Tomas Frick was certainly right at this point in the season, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, it's an older group. They've been through it. We were in better shape than we were last year at that point when he said that. And I think Tomas has been here long enough to really believe in what we talk about every day, and that's about not missing today, learning from the past, flushing it, win or loss, not getting too high, not getting too low, eliminating the distractions, especially any social media distractions, because obviously it's very easy for people to say whatever they want to say these days and hide behind a keyboard. But what matters the most is the locker room, and those guys, they believed the whole time. And it was just a little setback with Boston College. It was one where it hurt more because we got swept at home. But there aren't many seasons that I've been here where we haven't been swept in a weekend with some really, really good teams. So I just explained to them, we've been to Omaha quite a bit, and during those seasons, we were swept sometimes not once, sometimes not twice, maybe even three times. So that's awesome that he said that, and he believed it, and he's one of our leaders.
He did. It has been an impressive couple of weeks for the team. I want to ask you specifically about specific game type situations. I think, and we talked off the record, and I know it's the talk. I think the Diamond Hills took NC State's soul on Thursday night with that game. You're up 5-0. I mean, you can't lose that ball game. State does. I think Avent said it's the worst loss in the regular season of his career. That's a bit much, but just sort of talk about the killer instinct, the knockout punch and all, and how you were able to land that on Thursday and then carry it forward and not have that.
Yeah, going down right away, obviously stinks. But you give up that big inning in the seventh, it's harder to come back. I did feel like offensively we could come back if we could, bridge the gap a little bit. We won that game 9-8, so we only gave up 3 runs after that, which was huge, and we barely gave up the 2 extra ones. A ball that Petey made a pretty good pitch, and Green pulled it down the line. He hit it directly into the dirt. Told our grounds crew they need to water that dirt more. We would have caught that ball. But our guys finding a way, and that's a tough loss. Obviously, I've been in those shoes. But if you're in enough games, you got to be able to overcome those losses too. Unfortunately for us, finding a way to win it, Grant's getting the big hit, Colby being able to execute, a tough play, a suicide squeeze is it's a great play when it works. That's what I always say. Because the risk there is Casey Cook's on deck and he's hot as a firecracker. If Colby pops that ball up, there's 2 outs and the inning's over. But getting that first win for us at home was big for us as well, and then having Carlson back and him to step out there and give us that start, there's not much State could do at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I really thought was huge, is that seeing Max Carlson rise to the occasion on Friday when the bullpen, pitched basically an entire game on Thursday, and then seeing Knapp come out and have a great outing on Saturday. It's like they're just rising to the occasion. Can you talk about what you saw from Max and from Knapp?
I've been saying for a while, I feel like for the most part we've been trending up defensively and on the mound. And it helps when you're on the mound and the defense is going to make every single play. You're not trying to do too much, I guess. You're not fearing the contact, and therefore you should cut back on walks in general. But I feel like all those guys that we've been asking to go in and do their jobs, they've relished in those roles. They understand we may need them to go long. We may need them to do one batter. We may need them to go back-to-back days. But our bullpen's been good. The guys know about when they're going to be caught on. Obviously, Pence, Peterson, AC, and Poston, that's 4 really good options. Now we're Carlson back in the rotation, and Knapp throwing pretty solid the last month. It was a surprise that Bovair didn't go as long as, that he just had a bad, he was off. But those guys, in Pageant, he bridged the gap and got some big outs. Matty Mathias came in and got a big out against Grover. So buying into understanding that, you got to get caught up in something bigger than yourself. If a team does that, something great can happen. And I feel like our guys are in that spot right now.
And one of the interesting things is, it certainly looks like that Carlson and Knapp really attacked the Wolf Pack with, fastballs and letting the ball get into play. They didn't strike out a ton. Neither one of them walked a single batter.
That's the key. We talked about that this morning as a staff, continuing to improve as a pitching staff. What are we going to work on this week? Because our opponents, Coastal and Clemson, what do they like to do? What type of game do they play? When you play a team like State that is going to swing, you can get a lot of quick outs if you locate the ball. You have to be careful trying to strike everybody out, because then your pitch count is going to get up. We feel like we're doing a better job of working hard to keep the ball in the ballpark, and that is getting quick outs and throwing competitive pitches and not just wasting pitches and having an off-speed pitch that you can throw in any count. But I thought Coach Gaines did a great job, and we knew what the plan was against NC State. We were going to try to locate that fastball down and away, go in when we needed to, keep them off balance occasionally with one good off-speed pitch instead of trying to throw 3, just perfect your second best one and be able to go to it whenever you want to. And that's where Carlson was really good against righties. This week, he didn't try to throw the slider. He just went to the changeup, and it was enough to keep him off.
Yeah, he said post-game he didn't throw a slider the entire game. It was just fastballs and changeups. And then talking to Knapp, or the others talked to Knapp on Saturday, and he said, I saw what they did against the fastball with Carlson pitching, so that's what I loaded up on. Can you speak to, as a coach, you try to get your players to play free, and it's easier said than done. Can you just speak to how they've done that these last 2 weeks?
I think I do firmly believe that how us 4 coaches, how we handle that is important. It's hard to hide, being extremely tight or being negative. And I've always said I'm hoping that will be something that our team does like us, and it starts with me, number one, over the other coaches. And I want our guys to play. I think it's really important. If you believe in how hard you work. Now, our practices, they know that the practices belong. I always tell them, practices are mine. Your butt better be ready, because we're going to get after it. We're going to work, but the games are yours. I want them to know that in the game. We've worked hard. We've prepared, so now go play. You should be free and easy. Now, if you don't work and you're not getting your sleep and you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you're going to have that little birdie and you're going to have that little bit of doubt, and that's on you. But we're not going to have that doubt as a coaching staff. We are going to be prepared. We're going to try to have you guys prepared. And then we need, I write on my game card, trust your players, trust your coaches, because as the head coach, it's important for me just to let them go, let them play. And, and then they have to go do it. And you have to hope those guys buy into that. And they definitely do, because I'm going to let them play. They know our standards. You're going to run hard 90s. You're going to play the game the right way. But I also want them to enjoy the game.
That I'm going to go back to the Gardner-Webb game. I told you I was going to ask the question, but I want to do it this way. In Gardner-Webb, we all saw what happened. If anybody's watching this that hadn't seen it, needs to go check it out. But you want your players to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a line there. But I felt like watching that team, they did the right thing against Gardner-Webb. Everybody had each other's back. Can you speak to that aspect of what you saw in that ball game, but also to the suspension side of it? Because a ton of people asked, what's the deal with the suspension?
Yeah.
So just sort of expound on that game the last week or so. It was a team bonding thing for sure, I felt like.
Yeah, we had an incident at home against Miami where the pitcher yelled at our guy. Then we had Virginia Tech. You saw it. What happened. And then Gardner-Webb just happens. Vanderbrake's actually already heading back to the dugout, and the kid was so profane, I guess is the word to use, and went at him so strongly, he couldn't help but react. And our guys know that I'm always going to back them. I mean, they're not Bush League kids. And what are you supposed to do? That's my thing. Now, the rule is the rule. If you leave the dugout or if you leave the bullpen's automatic 1-game suspension, and they decided to enforce that rule, I guess. I still don't necessarily agree with it. I think things need to be looked at, and that situation I thought could have been handled better. But also, it is what it is, right? They're the judge, they're the jury. We got to deal with it. They're handing out the suspensions. We're dealing with them. We're getting closer. We've already had guys that have missed some games against NC State, and we'll have some guys that will have to miss, the game at Coastal. I don't need to go into who they're going to be, but you'll be able to figure it out, probably as we play. I mean, I'm not thrilled about it at all, but, if you got the right team, sometimes this group, you're right. Like this group, it just made them a little bit more ticked off. Like, hey, we've been on the defense and it's just baloney, but we're going to take it the right way and we're going to come together even more. And if a guy can't play, that guy's going to raise his game like he hadn't raised it all year.
So I know you're not going to tell me exactly who, but tell me what their rule is as far as who gets it and who doesn't. Like if I'm on the field, if I'm running to my position, am I out?
I don't know how they figured this out. I really don't know. I just know I got the email and these guys are suspended, so can't appeal it. And we're dealing with it. And our guys have had a great attitude towards it. But we're about done with it. We're getting close to the end where, some of the guys that played every game against NC State, they may not play game, against Coastal, or they may not play one of the games against Clemson. And that's for me to try to navigate and figure out, I reckon.
Well, the Diamond Heels, have their future and for the ACC and the NCAA pretty much in their hands with this 4-game South Carolina swing, with Coastal and Clemson both being in the top 10 of RPI. Can you talk about how you're going to deploy your pitching for these critical 4 games?
You know what? We know Carlson we're going to move Carlson to Thursday. He'll start game 1 against Clemson. We're going to roll Bovair back out tomorrow night at Coastal. He needs to get on the mound. He needs to start. He'll be on a pitch count. He'll also start against Clemson. The fact that he's starting tomorrow night, most likely he won't start until Saturday against Clemson, but we'll monitor that. Knapp will probably is going to continue to be in the weekend rotation. So, there's a plus when you win on Friday and your starter goes 25 pitches. He's available to come out of the bullpen against State or start against Coastal. So he'll start against Coastal, which we're excited to watch him do. And then we'll just go in and, we've embraced playing on the road all season. Great opponents, be great atmospheres, 2 teams that are having phenomenal years, 2 teams that are hot. But we also feel like we're hot and we're not going to back down from anybody. So we're going to just focus on practice today, Matt, but we feel good about our pitching and have everybody locked and loaded for 4 games this week.
Also, it goes without saying that we need to congratulate you on getting your a 5-year extension. Very well deserved. Obviously, Bubba decided to pull the trigger, and you decided to put your signature on the paper. So, congratulations!
Thank you, much appreciated. Very, very thankful and humbled and honored. But I don't take it lightly either, because these guys, you're also leading 18 to 22, sometimes 24-year-olds, I guess now, the transfer portal, but. I look back and remember my time being that age and the influence that coaches had on me. Usually it was good or bad. And I always thought, man, like what an opportunity to make an impact. And hopefully as you get older, your impact grows and you choose your words even better. And these guys leave here and hopefully are more prepared for the most important thing, and that's life.
Last question, I'll let you get out of here. Coaching at North Carolina, you mentioned post-game the other day, you're from Sanford, grew up around here. Sort of explain to folks what it's like being a person from North Carolina, born and raised, being the head coach at the University of North Carolina in any sport, but the head coach in baseball. Just what's it like? It's different, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been coaching a long time, and I always thought, my first head coaching job, and it almost was, and by the grace of the good Lord, Manny and I decided to stay in Chapel Hill, would be, a drastic move, because that's what it takes sometimes. But, when you've been lucky to grow up in the state, know the state really well, to me, there are most of the time, I don't think about it because we work so hard. But when I do think about it, I almost feel like, you're in the middle of a dream, from the standpoint, like, man, this is really neat. And to be able to, like yesterday, hop in the car and drive to Sanford and see my mom on Mother's Day. A lot of times, if you're in this coaching profession, that's just not the case. You might have to fly across country, or you might have to drive 9 or 10 hours. But for them to be able to come to all the games, and my brother and my sister, and I've got cousins, and but also to know the tradition, to grow up and just know Tobacco Road and basketball and all the great coaches. And I also think about that, like, man, that is just crazy to me that I'm a head coach at UNC, and all these, you got Dean Smith, who was the head coach here, Roy Williams, now you got Hubert Davis, but all these, not just those guys, Matt Brown, all the great football coaches, but you look at all of our teams here, they're all nationally competitive. So that is something that's been really neat for me, to be in those meetings with them. I remember my first head coaching meeting, just thinking, like, man, I wonder how long it's going to be before I even say a word, because my nature is just to sit in there and listen. Same thing in the ACC coaches meetings, and learn. But it's really a humbling, neat thing, is the best, but again, it's something you can't take lightly, because you're coaching other parents' kids, and I know how I would want my kids coached.
That is head coach Scott Forbes, North Carolina Tar Heels. The Diamond Heels head to Coastal Tuesday night, and then Clemson Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Good travels, safe travels, Coach Forbes. We will talk soon.
Thanks, guys. Pull hard this week. Exciting week.